Thanks for the introduction. Don't give me your applause too early. This could be chaotic. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I actually prepared 3 little talks. One will be about the story of a little bit about reminiscing about Room77 and the Bitcoin keys around it. One will be about the concept of honest money, because I want to explain what made me so enthusiastic about Bitcoin. And then, yeah, the third one will be about how can we keep Bitcoin in a state that I will still be so enthusiastic about it in the future. And that has, of course, got to do again with scalability. So I actually had a different structure, but I'll just jump right in. Patrick, you're not the only one to whom Peter told you're fucked after he asked him, do you accept ZeroConfs? I said yes. We did so since 2010, and I remember telling you in Berlin, hey, nobody ever double spent attacked us. I was actually looking forward to someone doing it, because I was pretty sure if it happened an hour later, some 16-year-old hacker would turn up and go like, I did it, here's the money, or something like that. And I do remember I went traveling, and my staff called me from Room77 and said, oh, we've been double spent attacked, it happened. So I mailed Peter asking, you were in Berlin? Were you trying to make a point or something? He was like, no, it wasn't me, he sent me the transaction IDs. And when I came back to the room, I realized, yeah, that my stuff just got confused by transaction malleability chaos on our SPV wallet. And that means we are still since 2010 not double spent attacked, or maybe we didn't realize it. I'm not quite sure. So
challenge accepted.
Whereas since you rolled out RBF, it's not magic anymore, is it? Anyhow. So yeah, we started accepting Bitcoin in really late 2010. Which was really early. We did not realize back then that we were the first kind of bricks and mortar retail business on the planet to do so. And I have to admit, the reason for having done so was because I wanted these coins. I was so convinced of the concept, and yeah, I have to admit I miserably failed at mining, infecting my computer hardware 2 times with malware, and then I was like, oh fuck that, I'll just sell beers and burgers for it, might as well work. That was one reason. The other reason was I was like, I need to meet people who are like-minded, who are into this thing as well. And yeah, if I sell dinners and beers for Bitcoin, then they might come over and this might attract them. I just have to set this timer here because I usually talk too long. So yeah, we started back then, and it both worked out. I got those coins at a pretty good exchange rate back then. There are still people turning up at my bar today and turning up, you ripped me off so big time, I paid 800 euros for a beer to you 5 years ago or something like that. And also, it was really unbelievable people who were enthusiastic about this technology, and it was like a handful first. It was like 6 people or something who kept turning up at the bar. We started a meetup there and so on. And then we all of a sudden we realized also that this is actually a great field experiment here, and it allows us to, yeah, all kinds of stuff happened. Like Andreas Schildbach, for example, was one of our first customer and that was a time when you actually brought your laptop to pay with Bitcoin. And you had the option to type in 34 digits, capital M7, lowercase s, address not valid, okay, try again. Then super new technologies turned up, like Bitcoin address shorteners or something, or we mailed Bitcoin addresses back and forth. So Andreas Schildbach was like, right, we need a mobile wallet, and that was his motivation to write the first mobile wallet, which is, I believe, still the most used one. I'm not sure. It's still my favorite anyhow. Other people came to our meetup, like this quiet Finnish guy called Jeremiah, and at some stage he turns around to everybody else and goes like, hey guys, do you think it would be a good idea if I set up a website where people can like make appointments to meet each other, to trade in person? I would call it local bitcoins or something like that. And I guess the rest of that story is pretty well known. So it was, I think, we kicked off, we kind of jump-started a few pretty interesting projects there just by people hanging out there and talking to each other and offering them a platform. And but then I'm actually coming from, I'm actually a conceptioner. I'm a consultant for strategic corporate communication. I'm an information architect. So coming from that business, I kind of understand the media. Well, not all the time and not all of them, but I'm supposed to. So I realized, and back at the time, the point was whenever media reported about Bitcoin, they were only talking about this is something to buy drugs online and this is something to launder money with. And when they had pictures, they only had like source code on computer screens and people sitting in front of these computer screens filmed from behind or something like that. So it was all very dodgy and dark and whatever. And then I realized, wow, with this place, we can actually offer the media people who do absolutely normal stuff with Bitcoin, like buying dinner or getting drunk. That's something that everybody knows. And it's just normal. People here doing normal stuff without any bad intentions. So yeah, we started actually to kind of invite the first media representatives, and they started writing about it. I think the first one was a Spiegel magazine. Who actually challenged me because I told him, hey, I see a future in 10 years or something like that where everybody on our Kiez is Berliner slang for neighborhood, is paying everybody else in Bitcoin. So it was the first article. Then ZDF, German state television, came around and filmed these people here. And then German French TV corporation Arte turned up. And then the Guardian turned up. I think that is the video that you saw. And then things exploded with the media in Berlin, Kreuzberg and Griefestraße. You could not walk down Griefestraße, that's the main street there, any day without having some TV team at some shop reporting about all that stuff. This was obviously, we started convincing other people, other retailers to accept Bitcoin. Try to explain the stuff. We formed an enabler team that was sent there when some merchant was like, okay, I'm interested, come over. And we experimented with technology and so on. Whereas I have to say one thing, the Bitcoin Kiez, as it was called then, was early, was probably too early. And it was always meant as a futuristic concept, as a strategy to explain Bitcoin, because when the media came there and wanted to talk about that, and they could talk to normal people, not money launderers or drug kingpins or something like that, normal people explained to them why this is a better money. So yeah, it was a concept, it was a strategy to educate the public and the media. It was a PR campaign in the first place. So we were very early and we were actually very lazy. And you guys here in Arnhem, I have the feeling you took this idea out of the conceptual abstract space and dragged it out into reality, you know, for which I want to thank you and ensure you of my respect. I think at the end of my talk, these three people here, Annette, Roger, and Patrick, deserve a big applause for that. Not yet, not yet, not yet. So this is basically, in short, the story of the Bitcoin Kiez. And I would actually now like to make a point about Bitcoin and its qualities as money, to explain why I have been so enthusiastic about it and why I still am so enthusiastic about it. The picture you see here already gives you a hint. This is from behind our bar. It's a sign there, I believe, after the Casascius coins from Mike Caldwell. This was, at least for a couple of years, the most used image for any web magazine or print magazine that was writing about Bitcoin. So I would actually like to claim I created the second most used image for Bitcoin after Mike Caldwell, who created the Casascius coin, but I can't because the person who sent me that sign was Mike Caldwell from Casascius in 2000. So all the credit goes to him. Yeah, gold, silver, and Bitcoin. To many people, this seems a bit weird. Is gold, silver not? Is that not? How do central bankers call it sometimes? A barbaric reminiscence from archaic times or something. So why do we put Bitcoin, this new digital thing, right next to it? And let me tell you. This is not my idea to put it next to it, besides Mike Caldwell. Satoshi Nakamoto, when creating Bitcoin, very obviously was trying to re-implement some characteristics of precious metals into Bitcoin. This is not a coincidence, and it didn't happen by accident, and Satoshi gave us some hints about that, whoever they were or whoever they are. They had an account on the forum of the Peer-to-Peer Foundation, which has a birth date, and the birth date of Satoshi Nakamoto there is the 5th of April 1975. Sounds like an arbitrarily chosen date, but if you're into what we call honest money or sound money and monetary theory and monetary history, you all of a sudden realize 5th of April, that was the day in 1933 when President Roosevelt issued an executive order that prohibited the holding of gold bullion and gold bars for ordinary American citizens. And 1975 was the year when President Ford allowed the average American citizen to hold gold again. I know it sounds weird, America, land of the free, but they actually had a gold prohibition there through half of the last century, something that we expect to see in Russia or in China or something like that. No, but it did happen there. So Satoshi, when creating Bitcoin, obviously had similarities between gold and Bitcoin on his mind, and I would like to explore these similarities. I made a few notes yesterday on the train, and reading through them, I realized this is actually a nice text that I could just, if you don't mind, just read to you. So what are these? What do they have in common? It's mostly three very important points, and I explain this because when we talk about what should this look like in the future, then I think it's very much worth to have a look into the past, to have a look at the qualities that have been put into Bitcoin. So when we plan the future and develop strategies for the future, we know what qualities to preserve or not. So what do they have in common? Firstly, both precious metals and Bitcoin are bearer assets, meaning they come without a counterparty risk. They are not anybody's liability, nobody's IOU, no need to trust anyone. You hold an ounce of gold in your hand, you own an ounce of gold. You hold the private keys to your Bitcoin, you own those Bitcoin, period. Secondly, they are not political, not even democratic. They cannot be inflated by any king or president, nor by the people's vote for that matter. Nobody's will changes the amount of gold atoms on the planet or the amount of Bitcoins on the blockchain. Now this point, the inability to arbitrarily inflate the amount of currency units in the Bitcoin network for any government or central bank or something, we should not underestimate the importance of this fact. Monetary inflation not only devalues people's life savings and takes the buying power of the average person's earnings away. When you look into history, you realize that there is an unbelievably strong link between the inflation of the monetary base in any society and that society going to war. There's some great talks out there on video by Andreas Antonopoulos and by Stéphane Molineux who go into detail about that. But the basic point is a society that inflates the monetary base, first people lose their savings and then they are being sent to war and lose the rest. And you can see that from ancient times, the Roman emperors devalued their currency by putting ever lower percentage of silver into the coins. And this went down till there was like 0.003% or some kind of really ridiculous amount of silver in the coins. And then the empire imploded. If you look at the First World War, every European power stepped off the gold standard at the beginning of the war to be able to print as much money as possible and as needed. If they would have been restricted by their gold reserves, because that was the actual idea of fiat money, to be backed up by gold, if they would have not had the capability to just inflate their money into oblivion, that war would have been over by the end of 1914, and every soldier in Europe would have been back home for the Christmas goose. And you can still see today in 1971, Nixon decoupled the dollar from the gold standard. And yeah, just look at the state of the world in the last couple of decades. We print more money and we get more war. It's basically kind of as easy as that. And you only have to look at something like the Iraq War, which cost every American household $75,000 by now. Now, imagine the United States government could not just produce that money out of thin air. They would have actually turned around to every American household and go like, would you mind giving us $75,000 so we can go to war against this person on the other side of the planet? The Iraq War would have never happened. So I strongly believe that we need to take the power away from people in charge to inflate the monetary base. Amen. Sorry for distracting. Anyhow, thirdly, what do gold and Bitcoin have in common? They come with their own payment mechanism or payment network. If you hand me an ounce of gold or send me a Bitcoin, I can instantly verify the payment. I know I have been paid without having to ask anyone else. And because there is no middleman involved, I know that this payment is irreversible and cannot be confiscated by anyone. That nobody can charge me negative interest rates on my money or bail my money into some bankrupt bank. This is because they are decentralized, and they are the only decentralized monies we have. Now, while alchemists of all times have tried to create gold, and while central bankers and private bankers around the world have managed to create some kind of fake gold in the form of ever more sophisticated fiat monies and derivatives, Satoshi has actually achieved that by creating a modern digital form of gold, which is what Bitcoin is. And yes, it can be argued that Bitcoin is even better than gold because it is actually easier verifiable, divisible, and especially transferable. Verifiable because math does it for you, divisible down to the 8th decimal place, and transferable around the planet in a matter of seconds and at almost no cost. Also, we do actually see manipulation of the price of gold and silver due to the fact that some banks have the government-given right to determine their somehow official price, and also because of the fact that people accept IOUs on gold instead of the real thing itself. which are then being traded as if they were actual gold and have a negative impact on the price discovery in the market. Both is highly unlikely to happen with Bitcoin, as we have access to global decentralized exchanges and marketplaces with no banks and middlemen involved, and as the ease of use and trading of Bitcoin makes derivatives on it more or less obsolete. Why should I hold an IOU on Bitcoin when it's as easy to just hold the Bitcoin? So at this point, it is maybe interesting to mention that the vision of a digital bearer asset, a digital cash, is much older than Bitcoin. And it is actually a vision from the late 80s, early 90s of the last century, developed by the cypherpunks, which is, by the way, a vision that goes far beyond money and actually aims at and will enable us to decentralize every aspect of our economic interactions and bring up new ways of economic activities for which we don't even have words yet, and which we nowadays call the crypto economy to come. So don't make the mistake to think that Bitcoin is the first try to implement such a thing and maybe at some stage replaced by something better, because Bitcoin is the better thing that replaced everything else. We've seen maybe in the last 2 or 3 decades, maybe 200 projects that attempted to implement a digital cash, a digital bearer asset, and they all failed either due to technical reasons or to regulatory reasons. A good example is eGold, a company that implemented a gold-backed digital currency, but centralized through a company. And as soon as eGold got somehow successful, the regulatory bodies who first had given all the licenses and given all their okays and given all their something turned around and was like, oh, we've caught someone who laundered some money with your system, so now you're going to have to jail. The inventor and CEO of eGold still today wears one of these GPS bracelets around his ankle. So now, these are the reasons why I turned so enthusiastic about Bitcoin. And now, of course, you have to ask yourself the question, how do we keep these properties in the system while we are trying to scale, which is like the buzzword of the last 12 or 18 months, and something that concerns a lot of people. I heard it here half an hour ago. It really concerns me. It really concerns people. It does concern me, because what we want to do with Bitcoin in the end is we want to replace Visa and their, I don't know, did you say 100,000 or whatever transactions a second or something like that? But not only that, we want to create the Internet of Things, where maybe my toaster and my fridge send transactions to each other every 10 seconds or something like that. I don't know what's to come with the Internet of Things. And we want to create the micro payment revolution that could again lead to the disruption and decentralization of other industries like the telecommunication industries. Rick Falkwinger has been speaking about this also. So now we have this big discussion there. Do we scale 1 megabyte or 2 megabyte or maybe 4 megabyte? And now I'm a conceptioner, I'm not a technician. I merely understand cryptography enough to hopefully be able to secure my messages and the contents of my hard drives and to use Bitcoin and that kind of stuff. I know the concepts. I use the software since the 90s. But yeah, as a conceptioner, I usually need to kind of drag things out of this technical world and put it on a conceptual, more abstract level for me. So in order to do so, I developed my own approach to this whole topic of, should we have smaller blocks or should we have larger blocks? And funnily enough, I came to the conclusion that it is necessary that we have a negative block size. Negative as in a minus before the number there. As I said, Bitcoin is a development from the 80s, 90s of the last century, and we had this funny idea. Can we take the picture, turn the picture off? Thanks. And I usually painted this concept on little pieces of paper at a bar. So I thought, how could I do this here? And then we had the idea to use this beautiful piece of old technology, which is approximately as old as the idea and the vision of digital cash and the crypto economics. And I have to say, I never used one of these things. Is this the top? Yes, it is. So, thank you, good night. Talking decentralization, I was talking about, that is what makes the quality of Bitcoin for me, and I have to say I belong to the camp that for me, to keep Bitcoin decentralized is a lot more important than to reach mass adoption, right? That is my first priority, is decentralization, and the second priority is to scale it to some kind of capability and capacity that we can do all the things that I mentioned before. But what does decentralization mean? And especially in the context of Bitcoin. I actually have a rubber here as well. Let me try that out. It doesn't work too well. Never mind. So what does decentralization mean? Interestingly enough, in the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto about Bitcoin, I did not find the word decentralization. He keeps talking about a peer-to-peer network. And that gives us a hint, because things are not either decentralized or centralized. It's not black and white. There's a whole area of gray shades in between. For example, the SWIFT network is not entirely centralized. It consists of several networks that work together and exchange information and so on. Sometimes you have a system where you realize that it would actually be better if it would be entirely centralized and not only partially decentralized, and not partially decentralized. For example, if the SWIFT system was completely centralized, then nobody would have the power to lock whole countries like Iran out of it. Then you would only have the possibility to either shut down the whole thing completely or keep it running for everyone. So when we talk about peer-to-peer, peer-to-peer, I believe, is kind of the highest ideal of decentralization we can get. It means that every node in a network is equal. There is no node that is more equal. That means that it should not make a difference what kind of infrastructure I have, what kind of money I have, in order to take part in the network. And it was Paul Storch who developed, or at least from him I first heard the term, cost of node operation. I believe the cost of node operation is what is our only possibility to have a measurement for decentralization in the Bitcoin network. Cost of node operation means, I need to run a computer, I need to use bandwidth, I need hard disk space, and I need computing power to calculate the planet. Whatever resources I have, no matter if I'm in Berlin on my big glass fiber cable and with my computers that I can afford, or if I'm somewhere in the Nigerian desert with a mobile phone that hardly has any reception, cost of node operation of 0 would mean that anyone on the planet could at any time find out if they have been paid, as I tried to describe what one of these beauties of the Bitcoin network is. I can find the truth out for myself. I don't have to ask anyone else if I have been paid. I can find it out myself, and that is the quality. So, but unfortunately, we're not there. We have a cost of node operation. Now, what does that cost of node operation depend on? And it's basically all coming down to this beast called block size. Now, please, nobody tell me the block size or the size of the blockchain doesn't suck. If anybody tells me, no, it's all okay, the size of the blockchain doesn't suck, then I tell them, well, you have never handled it. It's just like that easy. It is just a lot of data. Right now, so what we have somewhere here is the cost of node operation is depending on the resources that I need to run a full node. Right now we have a block size of 1 megabyte. And we cannot measure that thing, cost of node operation, in euros or dollars, because obviously, as I said before, maybe somewhere in Nigeria or anywhere else on the world, I don't have a clue how much the hardware costs, how much the connectivity costs, and so far and so on. But what we can say is, at a block size of 1, we have a CONOP of 1. And that CONOP of 1 may be $5 for someone in this area of the world and 50 for someone on the other side of the planet. So obviously, if we double up the block size to 2, we climb up to here. No, we don't. We climb up, well, let's say then we have a cost of node operation of 2. Sorry for not being so accurate here. So, as I said, I'm trying to drag this into some kind of abstract conceptual layer so that I personally can understand it, because I don't have the technical knowledge to actually judge if we can, who can handle 2 megabytes, 4 megabytes, 340 gigabytes, or I don't know. But now, when I do this, I can clearly find out one thing already. The higher that block size is, the higher the cost of node operation is. The more expensive it is for anyone on the planet to find the truth out for themselves. If we play this game ahead, we come to a point where cost of node operation gets more and more unbearable for more and more people. In the end, I won't be able to handle all these data that come here. And that's why I call this area up here bankland. Because where does this take us? It takes us to a point where I have to turn around again and ask someone else for the truth. I have to ask someone else, have I been paid? And as soon as I have to ask someone else, have I been paid, I have again a middleman, and all this beauty of decentralization is gone. Now, funnily enough, and I start thinking further here. How do you do this without being in the way? It's actually an interesting idea. Is what if we could go down here? Oops! If up here there's cost of node operation, and we're playing around here theoretically, then down here there would actually reward of node operation. So how could we get there? Obviously, looking at this chart, there is only one way to get there, and that is to implement a block size of -1 megabyte. And the further down we go there, the higher my reward for node operation will be. Now, of course, there's a lot of technical people here, and even I am technical enough to have understood that we live in a universe with 3 time dimensions, three space dimensions, 1 time dimension, in which the laws of thermodynamics are applicable, and that in such a universe it is absolutely unfeasible to ever create a negative file size. So, but in the same universe, it is also absolutely unfeasible to create a negative gravity on a planet like Earth. That has not stopped humankind to manipulate 100 tons of metal in a way that those 100 tons of metal all of a sudden behave like if they were in a space of negative gravity. We did so by giving the 100 tons of metal a certain shape, by attaching things to it like wings and propulsion systems. We did a lot of experimentation. We learned that let's not take the heavy metal like iron, let's take aluminium, and then we learned like, right, let's not take solid aluminium, let's take certain structures that make the aluminium actually stronger and still lighter. So this is my metaphor for this negative block size thing, or for the whole block size debate. I understand one thing. When up here is bankland and you have to, now let me name a few of the people who are like really pushing for bigger blocks. It's CEOs from companies like Circle. Circle is a company that wants you to use their service to tell you the truth and to keep your money and to carry out the transactions for you. Up here is a CEO of Coinbase, who runs a service that depends on and has a lot of VC money. His success depends on you not wanting to or not being able to find out the truth for yourself, but to have to ask him. Up here is also, for example, blockchain.info. Blockchain.info is also a company that offers you a service to tell you the truth. So you can ask them, have I been paid? And then they tell you, yes, have I been paid? So when up here is bankland, down here, it's very easy. It's you and me, Alice, Bob, and everybody else. Now, of course, this I'm trying to come to an end, I think. This whole thing means we have to ask ourselves the question, what can we do to make the weight of this blockchain beast less heavy on the one hand, and on the other hand, what can we develop to negate that weight, to be a counterweight? Basically, what can we develop to give incentives to running a full node that outweigh the resources that are being needed to run a full node? And those incentives can be either monetary or they can be practical. They can be ideological. Monetary would, for example, be right, if you run a Lightning Network node, as far as I have understood the technology, it's a hell of a good idea to also run a Bitcoin node at the same time. If it is possible, we don't know that yet, there's different opinions on it, but if it is possible for people to make money with fees running a Lightning Network node, then we already have some monetary counterweight to the costs of the resources that we need for node operation. On the other hand, I can imagine Lightning Network channels, for example, on the Bitcoin Keats or here in Arnhem. I mean, you guys are much further with, I'd say, an economy where maybe the money is more or less going in circles, not only always in one direction. And for a merchant, it is an unbelievably great idea to be able to offer, and I'm so looking forward to doing that at Room77, to be able to finally offer absolutely cost-free transactions to my customers in privacy. That's what Lightning Networks offers, and instantaneous, where I don't have to be worried anymore till some Canadian guy comes around to prove his RBF technology. You know. So anyhow, I'm getting the timeout sign here. So basically, yeah, this is. So take this idea of a negative block size as an inspiration. It tells me which way we need to go. We don't want to go here. That's not where I want to be. We want to go down here. So obviously, make your own conclusion. I believe if we take this as a guideline, as a strategy for the further development of Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure that Bitcoin will be able to scale and at the same time still fulfill the promise why we all more or less jumped on this technology. Thank you very much.